They thought I was dumb. I waited, started subtly. I'm Ethan, and I was the junior data analyst at Global Financial Solutions. Not exactly the most glamorous job title, but I enjoyed it. I liked finding patterns in the noise, building models that predicted market trends, and generally making sense of the chaos. I wasn't a people person, preferred staring at a screen to making small talk, but I was good at my job. Carolyn, my senior manager, was the opposite. All charisma and power suits. She floated through the office, all smiles and empty promises. At first, I was impressed. She seemed to genuinely appreciate my work, often praising my reports in team meetings. Ethan's done some amazing work on this, she'd say, gesturing vaguely towards me while outlining the project's key insights. Really insightful stuff. And for a while, that was enough. I was just happy to contribute. Then Maria came along. Maria was a few years older, a mid-level analyst with a sharp wit and even sharper eyes. She was one of the few people who actually took the time to learn my name when I started. One day, after a particularly glowing presentation by Carolyn, Maria pulled me aside. "Ethan, can I have a quick word?" she asked, her voice low. I followed her to the break room, feeling a little nervous. Maria wasn't one for idle chatter. "Listen," she said, leaning against the coffee machine. "I just wanted to say that your work on that report was excellent, really top-notch." "Thanks, Maria," I mumbled, pleased. But she continued, her gaze unwavering. "Carolyn's taking a lot of credit for it, isn't she? More than she deserves." I shrugged. "I don't mind. She's the manager. It's her job to present it." Maria sighed. "Ethan, you're too nice." She didn't even understand the underlying algorithms. She just regurgitated the summary you wrote. "And trust me," she added, "this isn't the first time." I dismissed it. Maria was probably just being cynical, I told myself. Carolyn was busy, successful. She probably just didn't have time to delve into the technical details. But then things started to shift. I began to notice discrepancies. Small things at first. Numbers that didn't quite add up. Conclusions that seemed to contradict the data. I'd run a report, meticulously check my code, and then see Carolyn present something slightly different. One particularly egregious example involved a risk assessment model for a new investment portfolio. I spent weeks building the model, incorporating complex algorithms and historical data. The results were clear: the portfolio was high risk, with a significant chance of losses. Carolyn, however, presented a much rosier picture. She claimed the portfolio was moderate risk and highlighted potential returns, conveniently downplaying the potential downsides. The numbers she presented were off. Significantly off. I double-checked my work, I triple-checked it. I even ran the model again using different data sets. The result was always the same: high risk. That night I stayed late, poring over my spreadsheets. I found it. A subtle manipulation. Carolyn had altered a key variable in the model, artificially inflating the risk tolerance score. It was a small change, but it had a significant impact on the final outcome. The next morning I went to Carolyn's office. I had to know why. "Carolyn," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "there's something I need to discuss with you regarding the risk assessment model." She looked up from her computer, her expression impatient. "Ethan, I'm very busy. Can this wait?" "No, it can't," I insisted. "I found some discrepancies in the data you presented." The risk tolerance score was altered. Carolyn's eyes narrowed. "What are you implying, Ethan?" "I'm not implying anything," I said, my voice rising slightly. "I'm just saying that the model shows a much higher risk than what you presented. The numbers don't add up." She leaned back in her chair, a condescending smile playing on her lips. "Ethan, I appreciate your diligence, but I assure you, everything is perfectly fine. I've reviewed the model myself, and I stand by my assessment." But I stammered, "The data, Ethan." She interrupted, her voice sharp. "I am the senior manager here. I make the decisions. If I say the portfolio is moderate risk, then it's moderate risk. Do I make myself clear?" My heart sank. I knew I was being dismissed, that my concerns were being ignored. But I wasn't ready to give up. "I just want to understand why the data was changed," I pressed. Carolyn stood up, her expression hardening. "Ethan, I suggest you drop this. Focus on your own work and leave the strategic decisions to me. I wouldn't want you to jeopardize your position here by questioning my authority." That was it. The threat was clear. I left her office feeling defeated, my stomach churning. I went to David, the mid-level manager. He was generally well-meaning, but also easily swayed. I hoped he would listen. "David," I said, "I have some concerns about the risk assessment model. I think Carolyn might have manipulated the data." David frowned. "Ethan, are you sure about this? Carolyn is a very experienced manager. I highly doubt she would do something like that. But I have proof," I insisted. I can show you the discrepancies. David sighed. Ethan, I appreciate your concern, but I trust Carolyn's judgment. I think you're just overreacting. Maybe you're just not seeing the bigger picture. He patted me on the shoulder dismissively. Don't worry about it, Ethan. Just focus on your tasks and leave the rest to us. I was on my own. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, replaying the conversations in my head. I knew I was right. I knew Carolyn was manipulating the data. But what could I do? I was just a junior analyst. She was a senior manager. Who would believe me? The next day, I started documenting everything. Every email, every meeting note, every data discrepancy. I created a hidden folder on my computer, password protected and encrypted. I knew it was risky, but I had to protect myself. Carolyn, sensing my defiance, started making my life miserable. She assigned me menial tasks, withheld crucial information, and generally tried to undermine my work. She made sure I knew I was being punished. Ethan, she'd say, her voice dripping with sarcasm, I need you to prepare a report on paperclip usage for the past 5 years. Make sure it's comprehensive. The message was clear I was being sidelined. I felt isolated and demoralized. I started doubting myself. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I was just being paranoid. Then Maria intervened again. Ethan, she said, finding me in the break room, don't let her get to you. I know what she's doing. Just keep your head down and document everything. She'll slip up eventually. Maria's support was a lifeline. It reminded me that I wasn't crazy, that someone believed in me. I decided to fight back, but not in a way that would directly challenge Carolyn. I knew I couldn't win a direct confrontation. I had to be smarter, more strategic. I started subtly countering Carolyn's manipulations. In team meetings, I would ask insightful questions that highlighted the inconsistencies in her data. I wouldn't directly accuse her of anything, but I would subtly plant seeds of doubt in the minds of my coworkers and senior management. Carolyn, I'd say, during a presentation, that's a very interesting projection. But I'm curious, what assumptions did you make regarding the volatility of the market? Because based on my analysis, it seems like the volatility is significantly higher than what you're projecting. Carolyn would usually brush off my questions with a vague answer, but I could see the flicker of annoyance in her eyes. I knew I was getting under her skin. I also sought advice from outside the company. I reached out to Dr. Anya Sharma, my former professor from university, who was a leading expert in data analytics. I explained my situation and asked for her guidance. Dr. Sharma listened patiently and offered some invaluable advice. She reminded me of the importance of ethical data analysis and encouraged me to stand up for what I believed in. She also helped me refine my data analysis skills, teaching me new techniques for identifying and exposing data manipulation. Ethan, she said, you have a sharp mind and a strong sense of integrity. Don't let anyone dim your light. Use your skills to uncover the truth, and don't be afraid to challenge the status quo. Inspired by Dr. Sharma's words, I doubled down on my efforts. I started working late nights, poring over data, searching for irrefutable evidence of Carolyn's fraudulent activities. Then I found it. Hidden deep within a shared network drive, I discovered a spreadsheet. It was password protected, but after several hours of brute force attempts, I cracked it. The spreadsheet contained a detailed record of Carolyn's data manipulations. It showed how she had systematically altered key variables in various models to inflate her performance metrics and make her projects look more successful. It was a smoking gun. I copied the spreadsheet to my encrypted drive and started preparing my report. I meticulously documented every manipulation, every discrepancy, every lie. I knew this was my chance. I decided to present my findings during a crucial project review meeting with senior executives. I knew it was a risky move, but I had nothing to lose. The day of the meeting arrived. I was nervous, but also determined. I knew I had the truth on my side. As Carolyn presented her rosy picture of the project's progress, I waited for my moment. When she finished, I raised my hand. Excuse me, Carolyn, I said, my voice surprisingly steady. I have some concerns about the data you presented. Carolyn frowned. Ethan, this isn't the time. No, I interrupted. This is exactly the time. I believe there are some serious inaccuracies in the data, and I have proof. I projected my report onto the screen, highlighting the key discrepancies. I explained how Carolyn had manipulated the data, showing the before and after comparisons. The room went silent. Everyone stared at the screen, their faces a mixture of shock and disbelief. Carolyn tried to defend herself, but my evidence was too strong to refute. She stammered, made excuses, and tried to deflect blame, but it was no use. The truth was out. David, sitting next to her, looked pale and uncomfortable. He knew he was complicit in her schemes. "This is outrageous," Carolyn finally exclaimed, her voice shrill. "Ethan is trying to sabotage me. He's just a disgruntled employee." "That's not true," I said calmly. "I'm just presenting the facts. The data speaks for itself." The senior executives started asking questions, demanding explanations. The meeting erupted in chaos. An internal investigation was launched immediately. Carolyn was suspended pending the outcome. David was also placed under investigation. Over the next few days, the investigation confirmed my findings. Carolyn's fraudulent activities were exposed, and the extent of her deception was revealed. She was fired. David faced disciplinary action, demoted and transferred to a different department. I was interviewed by HR and senior management. I provided a full account of my experiences and the evidence I had gathered. I was cleared of any wrongdoing and recognized for my integrity and analytical skills. I received an apology from senior management and was offered a promotion, but I declined. I had learned a valuable lesson about the corporate world. I had seen firsthand the dark side of ambition and the lengths people would go to achieve their goals. I wasn't sure I wanted to be a part of that world anymore. Instead, I accepted a job offer from a smaller, more ethical company. They valued integrity and transparency, and they appreciated my skills. Before leaving Global Financial Solutions, I had one last conversation with Maria. "You did it, Ethan," she said, smiling. "You took her down." "We did it," I corrected. "I couldn't have done it without your support." I also made sure to thank Dr. Sharma for her guidance and encouragement. The experience left me more cynical, but also more confident. I knew I could stand up for myself, that I could fight for what was right. A few months later, I heard that Carolyn had filed a lawsuit against Global Financial Solutions, claiming wrongful termination. But the evidence against her was overwhelming, and the lawsuit was quickly dismissed. I never saw Carolyn again. Now, I work at a different company, in a different role. I'm a senior data analyst, and I'm also a mentor to new employees. I make sure they know their rights, and I encourage them to speak up if they see something wrong. I learned my lesson, and I'm paying it forward. I'm making sure that no one else has to go through what I went through. Because sometimes, the quiet ones are the most dangerous. They just wait and watch and gather the evidence. And when the time is right, they strike.